Welcome to the Up-Level Martial Arts Community Podcast. My name is Jason Guyton. Thank you for joining us. In this episode, we meet Mr. Miles Dyson, who is married to Abigail Dyson, the sister of Mr. Sam Wiegert, the founder and CEO of Up-Level Martial Arts. Without further delay, here is a recording of the call between Mr. Dyson and myself. Mr. Dyson, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Pleasure to meet you. Your name tag down in the bottom says Abigail Dyson.
Yeah.
That's okay. Good. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Miles Dyson. I work with Up-Level Martial Arts with Mr. Sam Wiegert and Mrs. Dyson at the Up-Level McAlpine or Pineville Matthews area. And I've been doing that for probably around 6 years or so, 7 years, somewhere in there.
Okay. So you're at the same school with Mrs. Dyson?
I am. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. For some reason, I was thinking the McAlpine and the Pineville were totally separate schools, and you were running one and she was running the other one. But shame on me.
No, we used to call it just McAlpine, and then we discovered that not as many people knew where McAlpine was as Pineville Matthews. So we just made it a little bit easier for people to find by calling it Pineville Matthews.
Okay, excellent. And
Yep.
So you're at the Pineville Matthews / McAlpine.
Yeah.
And what is your role there?
Say it again.
What is your role there?
So in the Pineville Matthews location, I do some of the instructing, but that's mainly up to Mrs. Dyson.
Okay.
And my main role, or my biggest responsibility, is meeting new students. So a little bit of our marketing, and then bringing them into the academy and giving them an intro lesson so that they get excited about martial arts and they enroll. So that's my primary position there.
So what is your belt rank?
I am a 2nd degree black belt.
Okay.
And
Right.
I've done everything that I need to move to 3rd. I just need to test.
Okay.
So almost 3rd. I'll get there soon.
Good. And now, did you do martial arts before you met Abigail, your wife?
Actually, I didn't. So
Okay.
that I dabbled a little bit, but there's kind of a fun story with that. I was a trainer at a gym, and that's actually how I met Mrs. Dyson. Was we did a little bit of dancing together, but she came into the gym where I was working as a trainer, and got to know her a little bit, got to know her brother a little bit, and then our relationship grew from there. And after I had known her for a while, and I was kind of dating her, I knew that she did martial arts and loved that. And so I decided that I was going to secretly take classes for a few months right before Christmas. And then I was going to give her my first couple or few belts as a Christmas gift and just surprise her with me taking martial arts.
Fantastic.
So that's how I started in Lynchburg, which is pretty close to where she was training as well, there in Charlottesville. And I took it with Mr. Abercrombie, actually, who's an instructor in Lynchburg, and earned my first couple belts and surprised her. So that's how I got started. And so obviously Mrs. Dyson came first, and then martial arts came after that.
Okay. Excellent. So what was it like to be immersed in those worlds? First off, with martial arts having only been, focused on the fitness aspect and the training aspect, how was martial arts different? Was it more challenging? Was it easier than normal training in a gym, lifting weights and doing, cardio and aerobic exercises, or was it just a different aspect altogether?
It's different, but for me, I felt like it translated really well, because martial arts is still just human movement, just moving your body. And so when it came to, especially for me, when I started doing more instructing, it felt like I was just training somebody in the gym, because it was still body mechanics and still how your body is supposed to move. So it translated really well for me, and it was fun for me to get into, because it was something new, a new way to move your body for me, more involving flexibility than I'd ever trained before. And so that translated well. It was different. And I had some good help with Mrs. Dyson and the Wiegerts with their great instruction. And so I ended up really loving it and enjoying using, body mechanics in a different way. And as an instructor too, I felt like it was easier for me to explain with my background and already having learned how to communicate body movement and how to instruct in a gym. It translated pretty well for me. And I felt like that transition was pretty smooth. So
Good. Now, for your training, were you more for strength or just overall just conditioning and maintaining a healthy lifestyle? I mean, did you dabble into diet as well, or were you just like, I want to get big and bulky, mean and lean and mean?
well, personally, I grew up playing baseball. That's what I loved. And then it became more mountain biking and running. So I was never very big. And then and then in the gym when I was training, I did a little bit of everything, but I was primarily working with a lot of older clientele, really working more on their strength and health, and then a lot of weight loss as well. So I dabbled in a little bit of everything. I have a degree in exercise science from Liberty University,
Okay.
fitness specialist, and so I knew how to do a lot of it, and I knew a lot of what was supposed to be said and how it's said. So I helped some people build some muscle and get some strength, and I could do a little bit of everything. I worked. My internship was with cardiac and pulmonary rehab in a hospital, so I got a lot of experience with people with some special needs that had just come out of surgery or things like that. So I could help a pretty broad spectrum of people at the gym there, which was good.
Okay. So a little bit of rehab if needed and physical
Mhm.
therapy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't go beyond my bachelor's degree. So I couldn't like work in a hospital by myself, but I could work under somebody. So it was a lot of fun.
Right. Now, you met the current Mrs. Dyson at the gym where you were working.
Uh-huh.
So tell us about a little bit about your courtship. Like you got to know her and you got to know Sam. Did they go to the same gym, or was Mrs. Dyson, the current Mrs. Dyson, Abigail there, um, and you just kind of took notice of her, helped her train?
So I met her and Tim Uyghur. Tim Uyghur.
Okay.
Tim Uyghur had actually given her the membership as a Christmas gift. So they were going together.
Ah, yeah, she mentioned that in the
Oh,
episode
really?
she mentioned that in the episode that we did with her, one of the earlier episodes, I think somewhere around like 7 or 8.
Yeah. So I got to, that's kind of how I met her, was she walked in and I took notice and then tried to get her to meet up with me outside of the gym somewhere for a date or something. And it took me a little while to convince her, but finally got it. And then after that, actually, I ended up meeting her family and the rest of her siblings, and it grew from there. And what's funny with Mrs. Dyson was I really wanted to date her, obviously. And I'd ask her and she'd say no, which surprised me at first. And it took a few months actually for me to convince her to actually date me. But from there, it was great, and we ended up dating, and then got married in 2000. I'm gonna get in trouble. 2015.
Okay. The Uyghur clan, the Uyghur family is very well respected, of course, in the up-level
Mhm.
community. And just from outsiders entering that domain, if you will, like how was that? Was that intimidating? Was it just laid back because they're loving and caring? Was there a little bit of a combination of those things going on?
I was gonna say a little bit of everything. It's funny. It's funny meeting up with that family, especially early on, where it was just like there's a lot of energy in the room. There's a lot of, I mean, obviously they build a lot of momentum with their academies and just excitement as far as their business goes and as far as their martial arts goes. So it was fun meeting up with them, but it could be very intimidating too, where you're at a family reunion and you're talking about these things, and you're like, I just thought I was gonna sit back and relax and chill, but they've got all this momentum built and they're excited, and it's really cool to watch, and that's why I think a lot of ways they've been as successful as they are, and they're as hardworking as they are, is because they never they relax. I don't mean to say that they have fun, but they're also never just like completely turned off. Like they're always engaged in something. Even when they're relaxing, I feel like they're building themselves up in some way or doing something that will help them just become better. And yeah, so a lot of ways where I'm kind of envious of that focus and that determination. And yeah, it's fun. It's fun being with the Uyghurs for sure.
I bet they would. I bet like Christmas or Thanksgiving would just be a very interesting time. I haven't really spoken with Dr. Uyghur that much, other than one episode that we did with him and Mr. Sam Uyghur. But the whole family seems just very dynamic and just a lot of strong personalities. But they also are always very approachable and just have a genuine kindness about them that it's unparalleled. It's really a unique thing to watch.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said.
Well, we talked about the Wiegert family and you getting to know them and, becoming part of that family by marrying Mrs. Dyson. So let's talk about your family. My understanding is you grew up as part of a missionary family. You traveled in a lot of different countries.
I did. Yeah.
Okay. And then, and second part of that question, how did
Yeah.
that experience shape the way that you saw the world, or either, you had your own personal perspective on the world?
Great. So I grew up part of my younger years on the East Coast of North Carolina in Edenton, which is a beautiful place. And then after Edenton, my parents became missionaries when I was young, and we lived in Venezuela for a couple of years. We were in Costa Rica for a year for language training. And then we were in Mexico for most of my high school. And so that's kind of where I like to claim is Mexico, Oaxaca, Mexico, as like my home stomping grounds. And yeah, as a missionary, it was really amazing that I got to experience as many cultures as I did as a kid, meet as many people or different uh, world views of people from different places. And it definitely changes the way that you are. It definitely can help you understand people in a bigger way. And I loved my parents' example of what they did, which was really laying down everything and moving to another country because they believe that's what they're called to do. And I saw them help so many people in so many ways. I think it's always funny that people, when they watch missionary kids, which or MKs, so they'd call us, they always expect the MKs to grow up and like do the same thing, be missionaries. And that's not what I was called to do. But I love that example that they set of helping others, and I think it's made my worldview in that way a little bit more. And obviously that translates over to martial arts in huge ways as well, following their example in that, and supporting the families that we have and helping them grow.
Great. Uh, one one of the things I've always thought was interesting is that the word samurai, the Japanese feudal warriors, samurai actually means to serve.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
it's
I've always
awesome.
thought it's neat, and so there's lots of different ways that people can serve, be it being an ambassador to a third world country, or being an ambassador in a suburban neighborhood.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
fantastic, cool. So tell me about what do you guys do for fun? I mean, you got besides beat each other up in the
Yeah.
karate studios. Uh, I follow you both on Instagram, I follow you both on Instagram, and I know that you guys spend quite a bit of time on lakes.
Yeah, that's right. That's good. Mrs. Dyson is probably the one who has the more interaction on Instagram. If you follow me, I have a couple of pictures. So people follow my life through Mrs. Dyson, I feel like. But yeah, totally. I have a couple boats right now actually, but I love being on the water. I love to go fishing. Right now we have a 24-foot pontoon that we love to
Nice.
take friends out on, and the Uyghurs have been out on the boat, and that's definitely something that I love. I'm kind of a water rat. I like being out there.
Yeah, pontoon boat is definitely more my style than like a speedboat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up on the, in South Carolina. We had a river, and of course, the beach wasn't that far. But yeah, the pontoon and the kayak, a pontoon boat or a kayak or slow, taking it easy is much more my style. Okay, cool. And do you have any books or influential books or podcasts that you would recommend to the viewers or listeners of this episode?
Yeah. So Mr. Sam Wiegert, I was talking about doing my own training thing for a while. And Mr. Sam Wiegert came to me and was like, you've got to read this book. It's called, I believe it's called The E-Myth. Yeah, The E-Myth. Have you read that book before?
I have not.
So it's a very interesting book. And it's just about the myth of entrepreneurship. So the challenges and how to overcome some of those, but it also laid out really well kind of how a business works. So obviously we're in a business, we're in the business of martial arts. And so it gave me a lot of understanding of how businesses are run and the tension between entrepreneur and the manager and everyone and how it's supposed to be constructed. So that was a big one for me. And then another huge influential book for me was called, and lots of people have read this, but it's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I love that book. I think it's amazing. It's definitely helped me with everything we do with martial arts. I mean, I think that's what we do is we make friends and we influence people through martial arts, and just learning how to communicate with people through that book and what that teaches you, I think is tremendous. So those are two that I would recommend.
Cool. Now, if I'm not mistaken, when I started talking with Mr. Sam Wiegert about doing the podcast in the
Mhm.
winter, like in January, February, he had said something that, you know, I think you were interested at one point starting a podcast, or at least trying to figure out how
That's
they
right.
work or anything like that. So good. Hope I didn't steal your thunder. It wasn't my intention. I just wanted to
No,
figure
not
out
at all.
basic. I wanted to figure out how the puzzle worked, and all that stuff. And of course, having a great community like the Up Level Martial Arts, and a very strong pool of people to be able to interview and do episodes for is pretty amazing. But and, sidebar, if there's ever anytime you want to know how it works, I'm sure you know how it works, but if you want to do your own episodes or anything like that,
Okay.
this is not my podcast. This is the community's podcast. I do not have ownership or you know any kind of territorial issues with it or anything like that.
Cool. Well,
So
I had heard, so yeah, I thought about doing that. I kind of put a couple things together, and then I know you did almost like a demo episode, and I heard it, and I was like, that's awesome. Like, he did a great job. Let him run with it. Like, no, 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 no. Like, that's great.
oh
So I just wanted it to be good, and I wanted, and you did that. So
Oh,
it
well,
was awesome.
thank you. I wasn't
Yeah,
looking for kudos or anything like that. It was just
I
one of
know.
those things where, yeah, I still have a long way to go with these things, and getting comfort level. Honestly, the video is probably the most intimidating thing. If it was just me
Yeah.
talking and all that, yeah, I got to where I was really comfortable doing the audio, and then Sam was like, "Can you put them on YouTube too?" And I was like, "Yes, I can." So, but it does help me get out of that comfort zone. So,
Yeah. Good.
we'll keep motoring through that. Well, great. We have a few common thread questions that we ask to kind of close up the interviews. First off is, what, in your opinion, or in your own words, is a modern day black belt?
So when we do our introductory lessons, we always ask our students, do you know what a goal is? And the way that we define a goal is something that you want, that you're willing to work hard for. And I love that definition of that. I think that really wraps up a lot of being a modern day black belt. Is I believe that modern day black belts have goals and they're willing to work hard for them. And that can be anything from martial arts. I think that's a great place to start. Is obviously with martial arts, we always say, do you want your yellow belts? And the kids will say yes. And you're like, are you willing to work hard for your yellow belts? And they say yes. So that's a great example of how a modern day black belt is set up, is our belt system, the way you have to work hard for each level. And I think a modern day black belt, though, takes it further, or a step further than that, and takes it into the rest of your life. And that can be fun things like we were talking about being on the boat or fishing, which is for me is like being a modern day black belt is even putting time and effort and work into catching a bigger fish, and having those goals that I have set up for myself, or through work or with your family life. So it's taking that same concept of being a black belt in martial arts and applying it to your entire life. So that's what I think a black belt or modern day black belt would be.
Absolutely. And one thing I always try to keep in mind is striving for excellence in all that we do. And,
Yeah. Yes.
the way the black belt journey is set up, having those micro goals of just get to the next one, just get to the next one. And you can apply those types of things in a lot of different aspects of your life, from, getting through school, getting through college, just making it to Christmas break, just making it to spring break, just making it to, the end of that term, is really beneficial. And a lot of, those leadership books that we were talking about, I haven't read the two that, or I have read How to Win Friends, but not the E-Myth. But a lot of the leadership books, they will talk about, making your goals small and manageable, where you can just get to one step to the next step. And, there's just a lot of power in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, finally, the last thing I have for you, and it's kind of open the floor up for you, sir, to say what you think is a closing message, thought, or a challenge to the up-level community or the listeners at large.
Yeah, I guess a closing thought would be one of the things that I've learned through my martial arts experience, and especially working for the Uyghurs and working with the Uyghurs, is that there's a lot of power in listening and learning from others. And I've learned this through me, like almost having my strong opinions and wanting to say things, and then sitting back and just listening. And I found that with students too, is that you can learn a lot and you can even help people more through listening to what they have to say and listening to podcasts like what you're doing now, or listening to people rather than feeling the need to interject or get in or speak yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I tell my 7-year-old son that all the time. You have
Yes.
2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 mouth. You try to use them proportionately.
Right. Yes,
You know?
exactly.
Like you can learn and listen. You can look and listen, and then speak with, a lot less, so that,
Right. And even
you,
as an instructor, we have a saying that says that we see a lot and we say a little, or we correct a little. And for us, what that means is you can be sitting there talking to a student with an issue that they're having in school, or you could be watching their martial arts, and you can see 50 things even when you're instructing that you're like, okay, the thumb wasn't right, the stance wasn't quite right, their head was sideways, their back was bent, or whatever it is, their shoulders were forward. And if you were to tell them all of those things and just give it all, they literally won't change.
it would crush them.
Really, maybe. Yeah, it'll crush them. And also it's just overwhelming. It's too much. So we see a lot, or we have a lot that maybe we want to say, but we choose the things that are going to make the biggest impact on them in that moment. And if they can walk away with 1 or 2 things that we've said, and let's say we've listened for 30 minutes and we come up with 2 things that we're like, okay, we're going to help you in this way and this way, and that's it, then we can make a bigger impact on people's lives as well. So
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and for helping with the episode here for the Up-Level Martial Arts Community Podcast. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, and I look forward to continuing to get to know you and to put this out there and have it be beneficial to some listeners. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Up-Level Martial Arts Community Podcast. I hope it was beneficial and educational and that you got something from it. Thank you again, and always remember to up-level and unleash. Kia!
This is Sam Uyghur, founder of Up-Level Martial Arts. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We hope you found it fun and educational. If you did and it added value to your life, please share this with a friend who you think might benefit, and please give us a 5-star review. Don't forget, work hard, become a black belt leader in your life, and we'll see you in class very soon or in one of our online communities.
Be sure to find and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and always at our website, uplevelmartialarts.com.